Hello everybody, welcome back to another factoring video. Just when you thought there was nothing left to factor, we find more little things that you can factor. But what you'll notice is that it's all based off what you already can do. So here's 3 examples of different, maybe foreign looking situations that you are able to factor already. So let's take a look at example 1, where you have negative x squared plus 13x minus 12. Looks similar to what we have, but slightly different because our a term is negative. So in front of x squared we have a negative or a negative 1. To make that more familiar, we manipulate it to look like things we can already do. So what we'll do here is divide out a negative 1. Boom. So we're going to take out a negative 1, divide it out against all 3 terms, and now the 3 terms change signs. So what was negative x squared is positive x squared. What was positive 13x is now negative 13x. And what was negative 12 is now positive 12. So that the value of that expression has not changed. The look has changed. Now we can take what's in the parentheses and factor it like we normally do. Negative 1, we get one parenthesis to be x minus 12 and the other one to be x minus 1. Bam. And now that is factored down into 3 little terms, or 3 little pieces there. Alright, you try this one here, and press pause, and come back, and we'll compare answers. Okay, welcome back. Divide out that negative 1, now factor what's in the parentheses like normal, and we should end up with, at least starting with that structure, and then bam, negative 16 and positive 2 inside the parentheses, and that should be our factored form of that. Alright, moving on to number 2, example number 2. Now that looks similar because you have 3 terms, except instead of x squared as your first variable, you have x to the 4th power. Okay, what I'm going to say is this. Boom. If you had x squared plus 6x plus 5, you already know how to factor that. You would divide it up into 2 binomials, and if you want to use the x box or whatever, you would end up with x plus 5 times x plus 1. If you can do that in the red, then you can do that in the yellow. What will happen is, we have a trinomial. Most likely it's going to factor into 2 binomials, so let's try that. The x to the 4th power will now split up evenly, just like x squared in the red box, turn into x times x. So x times x is x squared. What we'll have is x squared times x squared, which when you multiply them together, will get us x to the 4th. And then from there, boom, you factor it exactly the same way, plus 5 and plus 1. And when you multiply that out, when you FOIL that out, you will get you this original term of x to the 4th plus 6x squared plus 5. So that's why it's called a quadratic form. It's not a quadratic expression or equation, but it is a quadratic form. It's a trinomial. So actually it should be like an advanced trinomial. So boom, let's try, hold on. Let's try the 3rd example. Well, it's got a little bit more in it, but we still use our same skills as before. Our first step should be still, you got 4, 28, and 24, recognize that we can divide out of 4. So we divide out of 4, and that's what's left inside. And we notice it's a trinomial, and we notice that it's x to the 4th, and we notice that the middle term is x squared. So this only works if that middle term is like half, not half, but the exponent is half of what the a term is. So x to the 4th, half of that 4 is 2, so x squared is in the middle. I don't know if that made any sense, but let's see, let's work this through. So now we'll do what we did in example 2. We take x to the 4th, split it up into x squared and x squared, and then we find the factors of 6 that add up to be negative 7, and it's negative 6 and negative 1. Bam. But we also must notice this. We have x squared minus 1 as our final term. We need to still factor that because that is factorable. That is a difference of, what is that, the perfect squares. So boom. Our next line, 4 times the quantity of x squared minus 6 is still there, but x squared minus 1 factors into x plus 1, x minus 1. And there we now have our final factors. In the quad form, we learned that we can factor when our first term is x to the 4th. Hopefully we can see this, and you can try to do this when you have x to the 6th, x to the 8th, x to the 10th, etc., etc. So hopefully you caught that pattern. So if you have x to the 4th, the middle term is x squared, you can do this. If you have x to the 6th and your middle term is x to the 3rd, you can do this. If you have x to the 8th and your middle term is x to the 4th, then you can do what we just did here. And so on and so forth. You have x to the 10th, if the middle is x to the 5th, then you can factor that as well. Alright, thank you very much. Hope that helps you out a lot. Okay, take care. Bye.